Marina Cole sat alone at the sidewalk cafe table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, trying not to cry as she watched other couples enjoy their afternoon. At 32, she'd finally worked up the courage to try dating again after 2 years in a wheelchair. The car accident that had changed her life had also ended her engagement when her fiancé decided he couldn't handle being with someone disabled. She'd spent those 2 years rebuilding herself physically and emotionally. The physical therapy had been brutal, learning to navigate a world that wasn't designed for her, strengthening her upper body, accepting that some things would simply be different now. But the emotional recovery had been harder. Learning to see herself as whole when the man who'd promised to love her forever had walked away 3 months after the accident, unable to handle what he called this new reality. And when Blake from the online dating site had seemed genuinely interested despite knowing about her wheelchair, she'd allowed herself to hope. They'd messaged for 2 weeks, their conversations flowing easily. He'd asked about her design work, shared stories about his job in marketing, and when he'd suggested meeting in person, Marina had felt that flutter of possibility she thought she'd lost forever. They'd agreed to meet at this charming cafe at 2 o'clock. Marina had arrived 15 minutes early, nervous and excited, wearing her favorite beige dress that complemented her dark brown skin, and having spent an hour on her hair and makeup. Her natural curls were perfectly defined and pulled back with a gold clip, her makeup subtle but polished. She'd even worn the earrings her sister had given her for good luck. She'd positioned herself at a table with good access, ordered water, and waited, trying to calm her racing heart. She'd seen Blake arrive right on time, watched him scan the outdoor seating area from across the street, and felt her heart lift with anticipation. He looked just like his photos, tall, well-dressed, handsome. She'd started to raise her hand to wave. Then she'd seen the exact moment he spotted her wheelchair. His expression had shifted from interest to something like disappointment, or perhaps horror. His eyes had moved from her face to the wheelchair, and she'd seen him take a step back. The recognition, the calculation, the decision, all of it had played across his face in seconds. He'd pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and her phone had buzzed with a message. "Sorry, something came up. Can't make it. Good luck." Just like that. He'd seen her disability and walked away without even the courtesy of a lie told to her face. She'd watched him turn and disappear down the street, and something inside her had crumbled. Marina had ordered tea she didn't want and sat there trying to decide whether to leave immediately or preserve some dignity by finishing her drink. She felt the familiar burn of rejection, the weight of being reduced to her wheelchair instead of seen as a person. The other cafe patrons laughed and chatted around her, couples holding hands, friends sharing pastries, everyone belonging somewhere while she sat alone with cold tea and hot shame. She blinked back tears, determined not to cry in public. Not again. She'd cried enough over the past 2 years, over the accident, over her ex-fiancé's abandonment, over every pitying look and awkward interaction. She was stronger than this. That's when the little girl appeared. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old, with dark brown skin that seemed to glow in the afternoon sunlight, her thick hair pulled into 2 perfect puffs tied with red ribbons that matched her shoes, and a worn stuffed unicorn clutched in one small hand. She toddled directly to Marina's table with the fearless curiosity only very young children possess, stopping to stare with wide brown eyes, framed by impossibly long lashes. "Hi," the little girl said solemnly, tilting her head. "Why are you sad? You have wet on your face." Marina quickly wiped at her eyes, forcing a smile even as her heart ached at the child's innocent observation. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Are you lost? Where's your parent?" "Daddy's right there." The girl pointed to a tall black man in a gray coat who was hurrying toward them, concern etched on his handsome face. He was perhaps in his late 30s, well-dressed in a way that suggested success, tailored coat, expensive watch, perfectly pressed shirt. His closely cropped hair was edged with precision, his neatly trimmed beard perfectly shaped, giving him a distinguished appearance that spoke of someone who paid attention to details. He carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being in control, but his eyes held a warmth that softened his commanding presence. "Ruby, you can't just run up to strangers," he said gently, reaching them. His voice was deep and rich, carrying natural authority tempered with affection. Then his eyes landed on Marina, taking in her tear-stained face and the empty chair across from her, and something in his expression softened further. "I'm sorry if my daughter disturbed you. She has a habit of escaping when I'm not looking. One second she's holding my hand, the next she's across the street making new friends. She didn't disturb me. She's lovely." Marina smiled at Ruby, who was still studying her with that intense toddler focus, her small face serious with concentration. "Why do you have wheels?" Ruby asked, pointing at Marina's wheelchair with innocent curiosity rather than judgment. "My friend has a bike with wheels, but yours are different. They're big and silver." "Ruby, that's rude," her father started, his face flushing slightly with embarrassment, but Marina shook her head. "It's okay. I don't mind. Really." She looked at Ruby seriously, appreciating the child's straightforward curiosity. "I was in an accident, and my legs don't work like yours do. So I use this special chair with wheels to help me go places. It's kind of like how your daddy probably drives a car instead of walking everywhere. Different tools for different people." Ruby considered this with the gravity of a judge, her small brow furrowing. Then she nodded as if it made perfect sense. "That's smart. Walking is hard sometimes. My legs get tired. Does your chair get tired?" Marina couldn't help but laugh, the sound surprising her after the afternoon's disappointment. "No, the chair doesn't get tired, but my arms do sometimes from pushing it. Daddy carries me when I'm tired," Ruby announced. "Can your daddy carry you?" "My daddy lives far away, but I'm okay. I'm pretty strong." "I can tell," Ruby said seriously. "You have strong arms, like Daddy." She paused, then added with the bluntness only children possess, "Can I sit with you? You look lonely, and lonely is sad." "Ruby, the nice lady probably wants to be alone," her father started, his voice apologetic. "Actually," Marina heard herself say, surprised by her own words, "I'd love the company if it's okay with your father. I was supposed to meet someone, but they're not coming, so I'd really enjoy having someone to sit with." The man looked between Marina and his daughter, seeming to make a decision. His dark eyes held understanding, as if he could read the story behind her carefully composed expression. "Okay, but just for a few minutes while I grab us coffee. I'm Elias, by the way. Elias Hart." "Marina Cole." "It's nice to meet you, Marina, despite the unconventional circumstances." His smile was warm, genuine, reaching his eyes in a way that made her think he didn't smile often enough. "And I apologize in advance for whatever Ruby says in the next few minutes. She has opinions, and no filter." Elias moved to the counter to order, while Ruby climbed onto the chair across from Marina that Blake was supposed to have occupied. The little girl settled herself carefully, her feet dangling well above the ground, and set her unicorn on the table with solemn ceremony. "This is Twinkle," Ruby announced, pushing the stuffed animal toward Marina. "She's magic. She makes people happy when they're sad. Daddy gave her to me when Mommy went to heaven, and she helped me stop crying. Do you want to hold her? She might help you too." Marina accepted the worn stuffed animal, feeling something crack in her chest at the gesture. The unicorn was clearly well-loved, its fur matted in places, one ear slightly torn and carefully stitched back together. This was no casual toy. This was Ruby's comfort object, and she was offering it to a stranger. "Thank you, Ruby. That's very kind of you." Marina's voice wavered slightly. "Twinkle is beautiful. I can tell you take good care of her. Daddy says being kind is the most important thing, more important than being rich or smart or anything else. He says kindness is what makes people remember you." Ruby swung her little legs, her red shoes catching the afternoon light, sparkles embedded in the material glinting. Were you waiting for someone? Is that why you're sad? Did they get lost? I was, but he decided not to come. He saw me and changed his mind. Ruby's small face scrunched with disapproval. That's mean. Daddy says if you make a promise, you have to keep it. Otherwise, people can't trust you, and trust is really important. Her expression became even more serious, carrying the weight of lessons carefully taught. The person who didn't come wasn't very nice. You're pretty and nice, so I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to sit with you. No, Marina agreed quietly, her throat tight. He wasn't nice. Do you want me to tell him he was mean? Daddy says it's important to tell people when they hurt your feelings. I'm good at using my words. Marina laughed through her tears. I appreciate that, Ruby, but I think he already knows. He just doesn't care. Then he's extra mean and also dumb, Ruby declared with the absolute certainty of a toddler. Daddy says dumb is not a nice word, but sometimes people are actually dumb, so I think it's okay this time. Elias returned with coffee and a juice box for Ruby, his movements graceful despite his size. Instead of taking his daughter and leaving as Marina expected, he sat down at the table, settling into the chair with the ease of someone making himself comfortable. He seemed to understand that his presence was somehow needed, that walking away now would be its own small cruelty. I hope you don't mind, he said, his deep voice gentle as he set down the cups. But my daughter has excellent instincts about people, and she clearly thinks you need a friend right now. And honestly, I'm grateful for the chance to sit. Single parenting means I'm always chasing after a tornado in puffs. 5 minutes of sitting feels like a vacation. Despite everything, Marina laughed, the sound more genuine this time. She seems wonderful. She is. Exhausting, but wonderful. She keeps me humble and constantly reminds me that 3-year-olds have no concept of appropriate timing or social boundaries. Elias's expression grew more serious, his eyes meeting Marina's directly. And I hope I'm not overstepping, but I saw what happened earlier. The man who looked at you from across the street and then left. I was standing nearby getting Ruby ice cream, and I saw his face when he realized you were in a wheelchair. I saw him check his phone, look back at you, make his decision. I saw him text and walk away. Marina felt heat flood her cheeks, warming her brown skin, embarrassment washing over her in waves. You saw that? All of it? I did, and I was so angry on your behalf that I almost followed him to tell him what an absolute fool he was. Elias's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping as if he were restraining himself from saying more. But then Ruby escaped my hand and ran to you before I could stop her, and I realized maybe she had the right idea. Sometimes the best response to cruelty is kindness, to show someone that they're valued by actually valuing them, rather than wasting energy on people too shallow to see what's in front of them. You don't even know me, Marina said, her voice shaking slightly. Why would you care what some stranger did? Because I know what it feels like to be dismissed for circumstances beyond your control, Elias said quietly. I know you were kind to my daughter when she interrupted your afternoon. I know you explained your wheelchair to her with patience instead of anger. I know you accepted her most prized possession and made her feel helpful instead of intrusive. That tells me more about your character than a dozen dates could reveal. He paused, turning his coffee cup slowly. And I know what it's like to be judged unfairly. My wife died 3 years ago, and the dating world has been brutal. Women who want a ready-made family until they realize parenting is actually work, that it means canceled plans and sleepless nights and putting someone else's needs first. Women who see dollar signs when they learn what I do for a living, who suddenly become very interested in my portfolio. Women who smile at Ruby when I'm watching but look annoyed when it's just the two of them and she needs attention or comfort or just wants to play. What do you do? Marina asked, grateful for the change of subject. I run an investment firm, Hart Capital Management. Nothing too exciting, just making rich people richer mostly. He smiled self-deprecatingly, as if apologizing for his success. I help manage portfolios, advise on acquisitions, navigate market fluctuations. It sounds more impressive than it feels. Most days I'm just staring at screens and trying to predict unpredictable things. What about you? I'm a freelance graphic designer. I work from home mostly, which is convenient given my mobility challenges. Marina found herself relaxing despite the afternoon's earlier disaster. I do branding, web design, marketing materials. It's creative work, which I love, and it gives me flexibility. That's impressive. Building your own business takes courage and talent. Elias leaned forward slightly, genuine interest in his expression. What kind of projects do you enjoy most? And just like that, they were talking. Really talking, not the stilted getting-to-know-you dance of a first date, but actual conversation. Marina told him about her recent project redesigning a local nonprofit's website, and Elias asked thoughtful questions about her design aesthetic and creative process. He shared stories about Ruby's adventures at preschool, and Marina found herself laughing at the tale of Ruby organizing a meeting with all the stuffed animals to discuss important business. They talked about books they'd read, places they'd traveled before their lives changed, dreams they'd put on hold, and ones they'd reimagined. Elias admitted he'd always wanted to learn piano, but could never find time. Marina confessed she'd dreamed of painting murals before the accident and was slowly teaching herself to paint from her chair, adapting her technique. You should pursue that, Elias said firmly. Ruby would love to watch you work. She's fascinated by art. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, without the awkwardness that had plagued Marina's few attempts at dating since her accident. She realized she'd stopped thinking about Blake, about the rejection, about anything except the man across from her with kind eyes and a daughter who was currently using napkins to create what she called important art. Look, Daddy, look, Marina. Ruby held up a napkin covered in crayon scribbles. It's Twinkle flying to the moon to bring back moon cheese for sad people. Moon cheese makes everyone happy. It's beautiful, sweetheart, Elias said with the seriousness the pronouncement deserved. I love the colors you chose, Marina added, and Ruby beamed. An hour passed, then another. Other cafe patrons came and went. The afternoon sun shifted, casting longer shadows. Marina couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this comfortable with someone new, this scene. Daddy, I'm sleepy, Ruby finally announced, climbing into her father's lap and resting her head on his shoulder, her puffs slightly lopsided now from an afternoon of play. Can we go home? My legs are tired from all the walking. Okay, princess, we should go home for your nap. Elias looked at Marina with something like regret, as if he too was reluctant to end this unexpected afternoon. This has been really nice. Thank you for letting us intrude on your afternoon. I know it started badly, but I hope we helped make it better. You didn't intrude. You saved it. Marina meant it completely. Thank you both for your kindness. It meant more than you know. Marina, Elias said carefully, adjusting Ruby in his arms with practiced ease. I know this is forward, and please feel absolutely free to say no. But would you like to have coffee again sometime? Intentionally, I mean, as an actual plan, rather than a chance encounter. No pressure, just two people who had a nice conversation and might want to have another one. Marina's breath caught. You want to see me again? Really? Very much. If you're interested. Elias shifted Ruby gently, her small body already going limp with approaching sleep. I'm not promising anything more than coffee and conversation, but I'd like the chance to know you better. You're interesting and kind, and frankly, my daughter clearly adores you already, which is rare. She's usually very cautious with strangers. It took her 3 months to warm up to my mother, And they see each other every week. Marina thought about Blake, about all the people who'd seen her wheelchair and made assumptions about her worth, about her capabilities, about who she could be in their lives. Then she looked at Elias, who'd sat with her for 2 hours, not, despite her disability, but apparently indifferent to it, seeing her as a person rather than a limitation, who'd shared real conversation, who'd let his daughter offer comfort, who'd been angry on her behalf when he had no obligation to care. "I'd like that," she said softly, meaning it with every part of herself. "Coffee sounds lovely." They exchanged numbers and Elias texted her immediately so she'd have his contact information, a simple message. "This is Elias, looking forward to coffee that's planned instead of accidental." As they prepared to leave, Ruby insisted on giving Marina a hug, wrapping her small arms around Marina's neck with fierce affection, her small body warm and trusting. "You're not sad anymore," Ruby observed, pulling back to look at Marina's face seriously. "Twinkle's magic worked. She's really good at fixing sad." "It absolutely did," Marina agreed, looking at Elias over his daughter's head, seeing something in his expression that made her heart skip. "She's very magical indeed." Over the following months, coffee dates turned into dinners, which turned into weekend outings with Ruby, which turned into a relationship that felt more real and honest than anything Marina had experienced before her accident. Their second date was at a different cafe, this one with wider pathways and better accessibility that Elias had researched beforehand without making a big deal of it. They talked for 3 hours while Ruby colored and occasionally interjected with important observations about squirrels and clouds. Their third date was dinner at a restaurant Elias had called ahead to ensure accessibility, where they discovered a shared love of terrible action movies and disagreed passionately but good-naturedly about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. "It's a fruit, Marina," Elias argued, laughing. "Fruit has no business on pizza." "Tomatoes are fruit," Marina countered. "By your logic, no pizza should exist." "She's got you there, Daddy," Ruby chimed in, siding with Marina in the great pizza debate and cementing their alliance. By the 6th date, Ruby was asking when Marina would come to their house, and Elias had invited her to a Sunday brunch, casual and comfortable. Marina met his mother that day, an elegant woman in her 60s, who hugged Marina warmly and whispered, "Thank you for making my son smile again. I'd forgotten what that looked like." Elias never treated her wheelchair as something to overcome or work around. He simply accepted it as part of who she was, asking practical questions about accessibility when planning outings, but never making her disability the focus of their relationship. When they went to museums, he checked for elevators without announcement. When they went to movies, he selected seats that accommodated her chair without making her feel like a burden. When Ruby wanted to go to the park, Elias found parks with accessible pathways and pushed Marina's chair when her arms got tired without making her feel weak. "You're different from the other women Daddy dates," Ruby announced one afternoon while they colored together at Marina's apartment, her small brown fingers gripping crayons with fierce concentration. Marina had invited them over to show Ruby her art setup, and the little girl had been fascinated. "You're nice all the time, not just when Daddy's watching." "What do you mean?" Marina asked gently, though her heart had already tightened at the implication. "The other ladies smiled a lot when Daddy was there. Big smiles like this." Ruby demonstrated an exaggerated grin. "But when it was just me and them, they looked annoyed, like I was bothering them. Their smiles went away. Yours doesn't. You actually like playing with me. I can tell because you listen to my words, and you answer my questions, and you don't look at your phone when I'm talking." Marina's heart ached for this perceptive child who'd learned too young to read adult insincerity, to measure affection by attention and consistency. "I do like playing with you very much. You're smart and funny and kind, just like your daddy taught you to be. And I like answering your questions because you ask interesting things." "Are you going to be my new mommy?" Ruby asked with the bluntness only children possess. setting down her crayon to look at Marina seriously. I don't know, sweetheart. That's up to your daddy and me to figure out. These things take time. I hope you are. I asked the universe for a mommy who would really love me, not just pretend love. And then I found you sitting sad at the cafe, and you were nice even though you were sad, which means you're nice in your heart, not just on your face. Maybe the universe sent you for both of us. When Marina told Elias about this conversation later, he was quiet for a long moment. They were sitting on his couch, Ruby asleep upstairs after a long day at the zoo, having just watched a movie together like the family they were slowly becoming. The house was quiet, except for the soft sound of their breathing and the distant hum of the refrigerator. Ruby's not wrong, Elias finally said, his voice low and thoughtful. I've been looking for someone to share my life with, to build something real with, but everyone I met wanted either my money or a fairy tale that didn't include the reality of raising a toddler. The women who seemed interested in Ruby used her as a prop to seem maternal, but had no interest in actual parenting. The ones who were honest about not wanting kids at least had integrity, but it still hurt. Then Ruby ran up to you that day, and I saw how you treated her with genuine kindness, even though you were hurting. I saw someone real, someone who didn't perform niceness, but lived it. I was a mess that day, Marina protested, crying in public over being stood up, feeling sorry for myself. You were human, vulnerable, honest. That man was a fool, Marina. But his loss was my gain because if he'd shown up, I wouldn't have had an excuse to sit at your table. Ruby wouldn't have given you her magic unicorn. We wouldn't be here now, and I can't imagine that anymore. I can't imagine not knowing you. Elias took her hand gently, his dark fingers intertwining with hers, his thumb stroking her knuckles. Marina, I love you, not despite your wheelchair or your past or anything else. I love you because of who you are. Creative, strong, patient with my daughter, honest about your struggles. I love that you don't pretend to be perfect. I love that you make Ruby laugh and that you've taught her that kindness matters more than appearances. I love how you talk about your art, how your whole face lights up when you're designing something. I love how you listen, really listen, when people talk. I love you completely, exactly as you are. Marina felt tears stream down her face, but this time they were happy tears, cleansing tears, healing tears. I love you too. You and Ruby both. You've given me something I didn't think I'd have again, a family. A future that isn't defined by what I lost, but by what I've found. You see me, Elias. Not my wheelchair, not my limitations, just me. And that's everything. Then marry me, Elias said simply, pulling a small box from his pocket. Marry us. Let Ruby's wish come true. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that real love sees the person, not the disability. That the right person doesn't run away, but sits down and stays, that we're stronger together than we ever could be apart. The proposal wasn't elaborate or public or Instagram-worthy. It was quiet and honest and perfect. Marina said yes through tears while Ruby's stuffed unicorn Twinkle sat on the bookshelf, having indeed worked her magic that day at the cafe. The wedding 6 months later was intimate and meaningful. They held it in a garden with accessible pathways, surrounded by 50 of their closest friends and family. Ruby served as flower girl, wearing a dress she'd helped choose, purple with sparkles because fancy needs sparkles. Her hair styled in beautiful twists, adorned with fresh flowers that matched her bouquet, carrying a basket while Twinkle rode in the basket beside the petals, equally decorated with a small flower crown. When asked if anyone objected to the union, Ruby stood up solemnly and said in her loudest voice, I object to anyone being mean to my mama ever again. She's the best mama, and she makes the best pancakes, and she loves me for real, so everyone has to be nice to her always. That's the rule. The declaration made everyone laugh and cry simultaneously, and Marina had to wipe her eyes while Elias squeezed her hand. In his vows, Elias spoke directly to Marina, his deep voice steady and full of emotion, carrying across the garden. A foolish man saw your wheelchair and walked away from the most extraordinary woman he'll never know. His loss gave me the greatest gift, the chance to know you, love you, and build a life with you. You've taught Ruby that kindness matters more than appearances, that strength comes in many forms, that being different doesn't mean being less. You've taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect, but finding someone perfectly suited to you. You've shown both of us that family isn't about being perfect, but about showing up exactly as we are and choosing each other every day, in every moment, through every challenge. Marina's vows were simpler, but no less meaningful, her voice strong despite her tears. I was left alone at a cafe, feeling worthless and invisible, believing that my wheelchair defined my worth. Then a little girl with puffs and a magic unicorn saw me as someone worth talking to, and her father saw me as someone worth staying for. You both gave me back something I'd lost, the belief that I'm worthy of love exactly as I am. Elias, you never saw my wheelchair as something to overcome. You just saw me. That's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. And Ruby, you reminded me that magic is real, that kindness changes everything, and that sometimes the family we need finds us exactly when we need them most. The paralyzed woman who'd been left alone at a cafe had found something far more valuable than a date who showed up. She'd found a family who stayed, a man who saw her worth, and a child who'd recognized her heart before knowing anything else. And the CEO with a little girl had discovered that sometimes the best things in life happen when we stop walking past people who need kindness and instead sit down beside them, stay a while, and let connection happen naturally, without force or pretense or conditions. Blake's cruelty had hurt, but it had also created the space for something real to grow. Marina would never wish for that moment of rejection again, but she'd forever be grateful for what came after. A stranger who chose kindness over indifference, a little girl who gave her magic unicorn to a sad woman at a cafe, and the family they built from that moment of unexpected connection. As Marina and Elias stood together at the reception, Ruby between them with her arms wrapped around both their legs, Marina thought about that afternoon months ago. She remembered the pain of watching Blake walk away, the shame of being rejected for something beyond her control, the feeling that she'd never be enough for anyone. But she also remembered Ruby's small hand offering twinkle, Elias's gentle voice asking if he could sit down, and the way they'd both chosen to see her. Not her wheelchair, not her limitations, but her heart, her humor, her humanity. "What are you thinking about?" Elias asked, his arm around her waist, his touch warm and steady. "I'm thinking about how being stood up was the best thing that ever happened to me," Marina said, looking up at her husband, at this man who'd chosen her every day since that first afternoon. "Because it brought me you." "And me," Ruby chimed in, squeezing tighter. "Don't forget me. I'm important too." "And you," Marina agreed, laughing as she bent to kiss the top of Ruby's head, breathing in the sweet scent of the flowers woven into her hair. "Definitely you. Always you." The three of them stood there together, a family built not from perfection but from presence, not from pity but from genuine love, proving that sometimes the people who stay are worth far more than the ones who walk away, and that real love doesn't see obstacles to overcome, but simply sees us, cherishes us, chooses us. And somewhere in their new home, on a shelf in Ruby's room, painted purple at her insistence, Twinkle, the unicorn, sat among other treasures, her magic having worked exactly as promised, turning a sad woman at a cafe into a beloved wife and mother, transforming a chance encounter into a lifetime of love, and reminding them all that sometimes the most powerful magic in the world is simply choosing kindness when cruelty would be easier. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below about someone who stayed when others left. Your stories inspire us all, reminding us that kindness still changes lives, that love sees beyond limitations, and that sometimes the most beautiful families are built from moments of unexpected grace. Because Marina Cole learned what many of us forget, that our worth isn't determined by those who reject us, but by those who choose to stay, and that real love doesn't see obstacles to overcome, but simply sees us exactly as we are and chooses us anyway, every single day, making that choice over and over until it becomes not a decision, but a joy.